Takumi, the unluckiest young man of the year, was living his life just minutes ago, only to be summoned to the heavens for reincarnation. The reason? A ridiculous case of mistaken identity by a god. He was accidentally killed. It sounded so absurd that Takumi couldn't believe it. The god responsible looked like a girl but was, in fact, a boy. Being a deity, he could read Takumi's mind. This blunder of an assassination stemmed from Sill's attempt to fix a crack in space-time. Apparently, some stray energy blast hit Takumi, causing his untimely demise. To make amends, the young god sent Takumi to another world, Edeldia, a realm under Sill's jurisdiction. No sooner had he landed than he was greeted by a pack of wolves. Fortunately, Takumi had been briefed about his abilities in this new world and managed to defeat them. The wolf meat seemed pretty tasty, so he stored it in his inventory for later. His new body was also younger than his deceased one, making it feel like a fresh start. Suddenly, a pair of adorable twin, though a bit ragged, appeared before him. They couldn't speak, but sensing no harm, they observed Takumi curiously. Noticing their hunger, Takumi checked his starting equipment for food. As a chosen hero blessed by the god, his inventory was practically a cheat code. He taught the little ones how to eat peaches, much to their delight. They probably hadn't eaten anything this delicious in a long time. Seeing their tattered clothes, Takumi gave them each a new set from his inventory. He tried asking if they knew a way out of the forest, but the twin couldn't answer. Seemingly understanding, Takumi decided to let the twin tag along for the adventure. After checking their basic stats, he learned they were only 5 years old and didn't even have names. Assuming a fatherly role, Takumi named them Alan, the boy, and Elena, the girl. As they journeyed, Takumi realized how strong the twins were. Despite walking for a long time, they showed no signs of fatigue. Suddenly, they dashed off ahead, straight towards a group of monsters, making Takumi gasp in horror. Takumi had initially thought Alan and Elena were just ordinary children. But boy, was he wrong. They were incredibly strong, like little demons. With a few basic moves, they took down a whole pack of giant boars. Witnessing that display left Takumi speechless. Since when are 5-year-olds this strong? He wondered. It seemed like the twins had sensed the monsters beforehand, stepping up to protect their provider. Realizing this, Takumi gently scolded them, reminding them to warn him next time they encountered danger. Their superhuman strength probably explained how they survived in the forest for so long. Continuing their journey, they encountered a bear. This time, the twins alerted Takumi before swiftly dispatching the beast. It became a pattern, Alan and Elena acting as his protectors for the rest of the day, without Takumi needing to lift a finger. As evening approached, they decided to camp for the night. Alan and Elena helped their newfound guardian by gathering firewood for a barbecue. Using a magic stone to start the fire, they enjoyed a delicious meal of grilled meat. It warmed Takumi's heart to see the children laughing and smiling more often. They were still shy about speaking, but their happiness was all that mattered. Before sleep, Takumi cast a protective barrier around their campsite. Their first day of adventure in Eteldia had come to an end. The next day, they reached the city, much to the shock of the guards. They had come from the Gaia Forest, the most dangerous forest in the region. The Adventurers Guild strongly advised that only a rank adventurer should enter. Yet here was Takumi with 2 young children in tow. Thinking quickly, Takumi lied, claiming they were from a remote village, searching for medicinal herbs. He assured them they hadn't ventured deep into the forest, and that the children, despite their appearance, were strong enough to defend themselves. The red-haired guard, seemingly convinced, requested their identification papers. However, none of them had any. The kind guard escorted them to get temporary identification, checking for any criminal records. The system cleared them, and the guard issued temporary permits, advising them to get officially registered with the Adventurers Guild later. Overwhelmed by the bustling city, Alan and Elena clung tightly to their newfound father. Instead of going to the guild immediately, Takumi decided to visit the temple first, hoping to speak with the god. Since this was Sill's world, all Takumi had to do was face the deity's statue and call out. As expected, Sill responded. Takumi recounted his encounter with the lost children in the forest, explaining that he couldn't leave them behind and was now their temporary guardian. He shared his concerns about his future travels and the need to find a suitable place for them. Sill panicked, desperately trying to stop him. Takumi, however, already suspected that their meeting in the forest was orchestrated. It was too coincidental to stumble upon those specific children right after his arrival. The shy deity confessed, apologizing profusely, but unable to explain anything about Alan and Elena. It seemed connected to the other gods in this world. Deciding not to pry further, Takumi let it go. Sil only revealed that the children weren't ordinary beings. Leaving them in the forest would have been dangerous, hence their orchestrated meeting. Reassured by Takumi's kindness and promise to care for the children, Sil seemed relieved. From the heavens, the god watched over the newfound family, heartened by their happiness. They found an inn to spend the night. The children, who had never slept in a bed before, were ecstatic. With their lives taking a turn for the better, their smiles were brighter than ever. Soon, all three drifted off to sleep. The next morning brought a delightful surprise. Aelin and Elena could now speak. Overjoyed, Takumi showered them with praise and affection. They headed to the Adventurers Guild for registration. Luna, the receptionist, was shocked to see Takumi registering the young children as adventurers. While there was no age limit, their tender age was a bit concerning. Aelin and Elena, initially scared of strangers, relaxed slightly with Takumi's encouragement. Finally, their guild cards were ready, serving as identification. Luna explained the guild's workings. New adventurers started at F rank, with SS rank being the highest, though currently unattained. They could take on quests individually or in groups, with a variety of missions available. Most importantly, they could sell gathered materials for income. Takumi decided on a team name, White Wings, a fitting choice considering his children's connection to the divine. When it came to choosing a quest, being late arrivals meant the more appealing tasks were already taken. For F rank, only a few herb-gathering quests remained. Takumi picked one, learning they needed to gather 10 stalks of a specific herb shown in the provided picture. With a 3-day time limit, they set off at a leisurely pace. Having appraisal skills, Takumi knew this quest would be a piece of cake. Spotting the target herb, he taught Alan and Elena how to identify and harvest it properly. They eagerly set off, returning with the correct herbs. As it was a safe zone, they took their time, enjoying the process. To Takumi's surprise, the twins returned with heaps of the herb. Might as well sell the extra and make some money, he thought. Gathering 100 herbs in half a day was unheard of. Takumi played it cool, attributing their success to his hardworking children. Being an F-rank quest, the reward was a meager 6 copper coins. Suddenly, a hot-headed adventurer barged in, annoyed by the presence of children in the guild. Despite Takumi's explanation that they were his children, the man didn't care. Words were exchanged, tensions escalated, and a conflict erupted. Takumi tried to de-escalate the situation, urging the man to leave, but he kept pushing. Aelin and Elena, though scared, instinctively jumped to their father's defense, delivering a swift and surprising knockout blow. Fortunately, witnesses confirmed the man instigated the fight, absolving the children of any wrongdoing. At that moment, Lowain, the red-haired knight from before, entered, inquiring about the commotion. Misunderstanding the situation, Alan and Elena burst into tears, fearing Takumi would abandon them. He was heartbroken they would even think that, gently comforting them. Their young minds probably misinterpreted his stern tone during the confrontation as anger. With the matter settled, Lowain introduced himself as the vice captain of the Knights. He inquired about the children's fear of abandonment. Feeling it was important to be truthful, Takumi revealed he found them alone in the Gaia forest. He connected their situation to recent reports of slave traders in the city, speculating that Aelin and Elena might have been their victims. Separated during an attack in the forest, Lowain fully supported Takumi's decision to raise the children as his own, even offering to become their legal guardian using his authority. As they discussed the reward, Luna inquired about Takumi's time in the Gaia forest, assuming he must have gathered some valuable materials. Not holding back, Takumi presented the red wolf carcasses, earning a decent sum of money. Lowain then revealed the reason for his visit, to discuss the upcoming expedition with the guildmaster. The expedition was a periodic event, targeting the ever-growing monster population in the Gaia forest, a threat to the city's safety. The Army and Adventurers Guild collaborated to cull the monsters, but always faced a shortage of manpower, as only a rank adventurers were permitted. Lowain requested Takumi's participation, impressed by his ability to traverse the forest safely. Despite being F rank, Takumi's effortless defeat of the Red Wolves spoke volumes about his strength. Unable to refuse, he reluctantly agreed. Lowain approached the guildmaster, introducing Takumi as a powerful newcomer who would join the expedition. Life in the city became their new normal. Aelin and Elena blossomed, well-behaved and beloved by everyone. Regular meals and joyous days painted a healthy glow on their faces. They worked 2 days, taking 1 day off to relax, embracing a slower pace to savor life's simple pleasures. One morning, Takumi felt a tinge of boredom with their usual breakfast bread. In this world, only 3 types of plain, albeit delicious, bread existed. Craving something new, he decided to experiment. The children, though confused, were excited by his enthusiasm for baking. After breakfast, they visited their usual bakery, asking to work there. Michelle, the shopkeeper, explained that her father, Rode, the baker, handled those decisions. Rode emerged, and Takumi cut to the chase, requesting help in creating a new type of bread. He presented a jar of jam and a jar of cream, suggesting they be incorporated into the dough. Rode was taken aback. Bread with fillings was unheard of in this world. Takumi asked to borrow their kitchen for a demonstration. With his prior world experience, he confidently crafted the new bread, even teaching Rode and Michelle the process. Curious, Rode agreed to try it. Aylin and Elena eagerly joining in as well. Takumi, wanting to add more flavor, discreetly added some fillings from his inventory. The four of them worked tirelessly until late at night, finally getting their first batch. After letting it cool and taking a bite, Rode and Michelle were amazed at how delicious the filling bread was. Aylin and Elena, beaming with pride, enjoyed their work. Rode expressed his desire to sell this new bread in his shop, of course acknowledging Takumi's efforts. Takumi happily agreed as long as there was a stable supply. At the guild the next day, Takumi was congratulated for his promotion to E rank. Due to prioritizing other activities, his current level was only 13. Luna praised him for his extremely fast progress. Aylin and Elena, also praised for their efforts, beamed with pride. Luna then inquired about their interest in exploring labyrinths. With their power, this could be a profitable endeavor. To Syl's knowledge, there were 108 labyrinths in this world, with a 15-story labyrinth located near Shireen. The monsters near the city were relatively weak, while the monsters in the forest were too strong for most. As a result, the labyrinth became a popular hunting ground for adventurers. Takumi, who liked the idea, discussed it with the children, and they enthusiastically agreed. Luna warned them about the half-day trip and the additional time needed to explore, advising them to be prepared. Takumi assured her that they were only planning to explore a few floors for fun. Soon, they found themselves on the 3rd floor of the labyrinth. Somehow, Alan and Elena easily made their way through the labyrinth, as if it were child's play. Their movements were completely synchronized, their minds seemingly connected. They were in the Earth Labyrinth, inhabited by Earth elemental monsters. A giant mole-like creature appeared. "Don't worry," Takumi began, only to see the twins strike the monster with incredible speed and strength. As expected in a labyrinth, defeated monsters dissolved, leaving behind items depending on their strength. The mole dropped a single worthless strand of fur. After a while, Takumi called for a break, content with their progress for the day. Using his portable magic stove, he whipped up a delicious meal. Ingredients were readily available in his inventory. Soon, a pot of savory chicken soup with fresh vegetables was ready. They set up a barrier, enjoying their dinner and a peaceful sleep within the labyrinth's depths. The next day brought stronger adversaries, but the trio made short work of them. Finding the enemies underwhelming, Takumi decided to head deeper, to the 10th floor. His expert navigation led them to a treasure chest. While it could contain riches or a trap, Takumi carefully inspected it before allowing the children to open it. Inside were 2 sparkling potions. Upon evaluation, one was a basic health potion, the other a mana potion. Not worth much, but useful nonetheless. At that moment, Alan and Elena pointed behind them. A massive beast, the floor's guardian, stood there. Before it could even react, the twins struck with deadly precision, killing it instantly. They obtained a wild monkey's fur, a decent material with various applications. The children were thrilled with their accomplishment. Their abilities were truly remarkable: superhuman strength, agility, and godlike reflexes. Attributing it to mere training seems absurd considering their age. It was clearly instinctual. Takumi understood Syl's worry now. In the wrong hands, Alan and Elena could be turned into living weapons. A venomous snake appears, forcing Takumi to intervene, protecting his children. As he finished it off, a swarm of giant bees attacked. Although not venomous, their speed was overwhelming, easily dodging the twins' attacks. Their ability to learn, however, was astonishing. Taking advantage of the breather, Takumi organized their loot, pondering the use of some unfamiliar items. The bees, thoroughly exhausted from the twins' relentless assault, finally succumbed, rewarded them with several jars of honey. This is the most applicable temporary target that will be hunted. After enough gathering honey, Takumi surprised the twins with French toast, drizzled with the sweet nectar. The aroma, however, attracted a new wave of giant bees, leading to an unexpected honey bonanza. They finally reached the 15th and final floor of the labyrinth. A grand door, hinting at a final boss battle, stood before them. Upon opening it, a vast chamber unfolded. The gate slammed shut behind them, and a monstrous worm-like creature, the Guardian, emerged. Knowing they had to defeat it to escape, Takumi invited the twins to stand back. His initial attack, an advanced wind technique, missed. The worm was unbelievably fast and wielded magic, making for a challenging adversary. Using a dust cloud as cover, Takumi unleashed a deadly attack, piercing the creature's head and killing it instantly. The battle ended so quickly that Takumi questioned his own reality for a moment. The defeated worm yields a rare and valuable ingredient, worm meat. While a delicacy, the thought of actually eating it made Takumi queasy. The twins, however, were thrilled by their father's victory, mimicking his actions and showering him with praise. The path forward opened, revealing a teleportation device that will safely return them to the surface. Aylin and Elena, ever curious, spotted another treasure chest. Inside, they found a strange orb, a detonation sphere. This powerful artifact could create a large explosion within a specific radius. Mistaking it for a toy, the children began tossing it around, making Takumi's heart skip a beat. Thankfully, it didn't detonate. They activated the teleportation device, returning to the surface without further incident. As they made their way back to the city, they encountered a lone wolf observing them. Initially mistaking it for a monster, they were proven wrong. For some reason, this particular wolf seemed drawn to them, wagging its tail playfully. Checking its status revealed it to be an S-rank monster. More shockingly, it had already formed a familiar contract with Takumi. Attributing this bizarre occurrence to divine intervention, Takumi could only sigh and accept his new companion. To his relief, the wolf was incredibly intelligent, understanding his every word. Aylin and Elena, initially jealous of the attention showered on the wolf, quickly warmed up to their new furry sibling. They embraced the wolf, thrilled to have a new playmate. Takumi named it Jewel. Aylin and Elena, overjoyed with their new playmate, showered Jewel with affection. As they approached the city, they realized that they cannot openly bring a wolf without causing a panic. Fortunately, Jewel possesses the ability to be invisible, easily disappearing into Takumi's shadow. They arrive at the temple, where Syl greets them warmly. It has been a long time since they last spoke. However, before exchanging pleasantries, Takumi asks about the familiar contract with Jewel. Syl reveals that it is not his business, but the water gods. It seems that they want to express their gratitude by sending a divine beast to help Takumi. Syl hints at a similar gift from himself in the future. The water gods' involvement seems to be related to Alan and Elena. Back at the inn, they enjoy a long, much-needed sleep after their adventure in the labyrinth. The next day, Syl summoned them, ready to introduce their new companions, a white tiger and a golden hawk. The white tiger was a majestic wind elemental beast capable of flight. The hawk, named Thunderclap, possessed silky golden fur and lightning fast attack speed, befitting its rank status. The children, curious as ever, asked for their names. Takumi, after some thought, named the Tiger Feet and the Hawk Bolt. Aylin and Elena rushed to greet their new companions. Takumi created special collars that could adjust the size of the animals at will. With a wave of his hand, Jewel and Feet shrank to the size of a puppy and a kitten. This way, he could carry them into the city without attracting unwanted attention. Seeing the transformation, Alan and Elena eagerly requested similar necklaces. Although he could not give them animal necklaces, Takumi found suitable alternatives, much to their delight. He gave them beautiful angel wing pendants that were resistant to physical and magical damage. He also equipped them with special bags from his world, bottomless bags that could hold a large amount of items without ever being full. As for Bolt, he had to hide in Takumi's shadow for the time being. A hawk flying over the city would surely cause chaos. With their new accessories and companions, Alan and Elena proudly walked into the city, using their guild cards to identify themselves. Having something that belonged only to them brought boundless joy. As they walked around the city, Elena discovered a display of adorable stuffed toys. Takumi, the father he had always loved, took them shopping. The store offered a wide variety of children's items. He bought matching hair ribbons for Elena, and although he was a bit biased towards his daughter, he still thought it was a good idea to give a simple toy to Alan. After picking out a few more items, Elena picked up a set of black ribbons, claiming that they would go well with Takumi's hair. When asked, Alan shook his head, not wanting to wear ribbons like his sister. The shopkeeper, fascinated by their cuteness, suggested trying on some outfits. Soon, Alan and Elena were decked out in a variety of adorable outfits, all handmade by the shopkeeper herself. It seemed that she had a hobby of dressing the children who came to her shop. Takumi, fascinated by their appearance in matching dresses, bought them immediately. That night, they slept soundly, content and surrounded by new things. Takumi was determined to find something special for Alan next time, but he wasn't sure what his son would like. Toys like cars, cards, and video games were common hobbies for boys in his previous world. But such things didn't exist here. He would need to be more creative. The next morning, the children woke their father up early. It was the day of the Gaia Forest expedition. Although he was a little nervous about bringing Alan and Elena along, knowing the dangers posed by rank monsters, he could not bear to leave them without a trustworthy guardian. So the trio set off for the rendezvous point designated by Luane. The children were still wary of the stern vice captain, but he seemed pleased with their presence, knowing that their absence would cause trouble. They were introduced to Isaac, Luane's second-in-command, who was more understanding and seemed sympathetic to their situation, believing that Luane had pressured Takumi to join. Takumi, always optimistic, asserted that it was a valuable experience for him and his children. Isaac, unaware of Alan and Elena's true strength, expressed concern. However, Luane quickly reassured him, recounting their previous display of strength against an adult adventurer. Overwhelmed by the crowd, the children clung to Takumi, still unfamiliar with crowds. He carried them on his shoulders, allowing them to gradually adjust. The journey to Gaia Forest began. Takumi and the twins were invited to ride in Luane's carriage, a privilege of their relationship with the vice captain. It was a welcome arrangement, saving them from the awkwardness of interacting with strangers. As they sat in the carriage, Takumi couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Surprisingly, Alan and Elena also sensed it. Their postures were very alert. He reasoned that it could be curious people, but the possibility of enemies lurking could not be ruled out. The carriage ride to the forest's edge will take about an hour. Takumi, concerned about the children's patience, asked if they were all right with the journey. Their enthusiastic nods delighted the knights, who were quite taken with the twins. They showered them with compliments and reassurances, putting their young minds at ease. Upon reaching the forest, the group split into smaller teams. The monster extermination wouldn't be a single-day affair. They will camp within the forest for a few days. Luane assigned 3 teams to different patrol routes toward their designated camping grounds. Takumi's team consists of Luane and a few other adventurers. Their 4-person squad, aptly named Dragon's Breath, hinted at their collective strength. Takumi introduced their team as White Wings, requesting guidance from the experienced adventurers. As they walked, Alan and Elena alerted Takumi to a monster presence, just like before. He relayed the information to Luane, but to their surprise, the knights couldn't detect anything. Even the seasoned adventurers couldn't sense any monsters in that direction. It seemed the twins' detection range far surpassed any scouting skill. Their method was unique, an invisible barrier, alerting them to anything that crossed its boundary. After a while, the monster finally entered the adventurers' detection range, prompting a warning from Luane. This was no ordinary red wolf. It emanated a powerful, ominous aura. As the adventurers prepare for battle, Alan and Elena, their excitement bubbling over, charged towards the beast. Takumi gasped, realizing he hadn't reminded them to hold back today. Before anyone could react, the fearsome red wolf was reduced to a plaything, batted back and forth between the twins like a soccer ball. The adventurers watched in stunned silence. The children then dragged their conquered prey back to Takumi, proudly displaying their prize. He offered simple praise, reminded them to let the others have a turn next time, explaining that defeating even one monster was impressive. Luane, struggling to comprehend what he had just testified, questioning the children's absurd strength. Thankfully, the red wolf was classified as a C-rank monster, somewhat lessening the shock. Takumi recounted the twins' previous victory against a C-rank adventurer, assuming Luane already knew. The vice captain, however, attributed that incident to the adventurers' underestimation of the children. Takumi reiterated his discovery of Alan and Elena in the heart of the Gaia Forest, their survival a testament to their extraordinary abilities. "Ah, you're right," Luane conceded, recalling the incident. Initially, he assumed the children had simply been rescued by Takumi, never imagining they could survive alone in such a dangerous place. High above, in his divine realm, Syl observed the unfolding events, a pang of guilt washing over him. He silently apologized to Takumi for the predicament he'd caused, offering a heartfelt prayer for their safe return, an ominous hint of impending danger. Meanwhile, Alan and Elena, their attention drawn to something in the undergrowth, scampered off. It seemed they hadn't forgotten Takumi's herb, gathering lesson from their previous visit. They returned moments later, presenting him with a handful of valuable herbs, much to his delight. He reminded them, however, that they were traveling as a group and shouldn't wander off without permission. Noticing the other adventurers' growing impatience, the twins responded with their usual dose of cuteness, melting Lowain's heart. He relented, granting them permission to gather herbs as long as they kept pace with the group. The children soon discovered a patch of herbs used in anti-itch potions. Lowain, prone to severe allergic reactions, considered it a godsend. He was about to resume his usual habit of barehanded harvesting when Isaac intervened, scolding him relentlessly. It was a frequent occurrence, familiar to their fellow knights. After collecting the necessary herbs, they turned to find Lowain still on the receiving end of Isaac's lecture. Another hour at least, one of the knights commented, exasperated. Talk about slowing down the expedition. Takumi, eager to defuse the situation, discreetly instructed his children to intervene. With innocent smiles, they approached the fuming vice captain, offering him a pouch filled with the precious anti-itch herbs. Lowain fell silent, allowing their journey to continue. They soon encountered a pack of monsters, 6 smaller ones and a massive boar. The group prepared for battle, each member taking on an opponent. Lowain, initially skeptical of Takumi's ability to handle such a foe, watched in awe as he effortlessly dispatched 2 monsters with a single, swift movement. The A-rank adventurer, equally skilled, swiftly took down the leader of the pack. He approached Takumi afterward, stunned by his display of strength. "You're incredibly powerful," he admitted, perhaps even stronger than those 2 combined. Alan and Elena, ever protective of their father, sensed his discomfort and prepared to intervene. Lowain, thankfully, noticed their intent and quickly diffused the situation. The adventurers, having witnessed the twins' true power, agreed that Takumi's E rank was a gross understatement. They proposed recommending him for a promotion upon their return. Takumi was surprised. He hadn't realized they had such authority. It turned out that a recommendation from a high-ranking adventurer held significant weight, often leading to a guaranteed promotion. Now that you mention it, Lowain mused, that's strange. It was unusual to encounter a pack of monsters of that size so close to the edge of the forest. Rudolph, the quiet rank adventurer, chimed in. The atmosphere in the forest seems different this time. His comment raised concerns. This expedition might be more dangerous than expected. They needed to proceed with extreme caution and investigate further before setting up camp. Before they could discuss further, the children, their stomachs growling, declared that they were hungry. They stopped for a quick meal. Takumi brought out his famous stuffed bread, much to Volt's surprise. I heard that bakery only makes 20 a day, Volt exclaimed, and they sell out unpredictably. Bread had become a rare treat in the city. Takumi chuckled. As the one who made it, he and the twins enjoyed bread every day. Lowain, unable to contain his curiosity, swallowed his pride and begged for a bite. However, Alan and Elena held on to their precious snacks. No way, they declared. Dad bought it for us. Desperate, Takumi handed each of the adventurers a loaf of bread. Having never tasted anything like it before, they were instantly hooked, momentarily forgetting their guard as they feasted on the delicious food. Their journey continued, only to be interrupted by a cry for help. Another team was under attack. We need to hurry, Lowain urged, immediately changing course. They had no information about the attackers, only desperate pleas echoing throughout the forest. Save your energy, Lowain instructed. We don't know what we're facing. We'll go first, Takumi volunteered. He gathered his children close, wrapped them in a cloak of wind, and transformed into a tornado at an incredible speed. The adventurers could only stare in amazement. They arrived just in time, seeing that the other team was about to be overwhelmed by a pack of high-level wolves. Despite his desire to keep it a secret, Takumi still drew his magical sword, his movements a blur as he easily protected the injured adventurers. Alan and Elena, given the green light, joined the fight, their coordinated attacks swift and deadly. The wolves had no chance against their combined might. By the time the remaining adventurers arrived, the threat had been neutralized. The sight of the formidable pack of wolves being defeated so easily left them speechless. They expressed their sincere gratitude, acknowledging that their lives had been saved. Lowain, his initial skepticism replaced with utter amazement, remarked, I never would have guessed someone of your stature would possess such incredible strength. Alan and Elena also received their praise. Are you guys okay? Takumi asked, checking to see if his children were injured. They were unharmed, their energy as boundless as before. Suddenly, the unsettling feeling of being watched returned, stronger than before. Even with their combined senses, they couldn't pinpoint the location of the stalker, only knowing that they were being watched. That night, while camping in the forest, Takumi couldn't help but notice the morbidity of his fellow adventurers. Their meals were rudimentary at best, focusing solely on sustenance rather than flavor. "We're knights," Loane explained, observing his observation. "We prioritize speed and efficiency, not culinary arts." Asking about the female adventurers and other teams yielded similar responses. Cooking simply wasn't a priority for most. Takumi, however, couldn't bear the thought of his children subsisting on such bland fare. He was meticulous about their meals, ensuring they were both nutritious and delicious. He volunteered to share his cooking expertise, much to the delight of everyone present. Using his knowledge from his previous world, Takumi whipped up a flavorful vegetable stew. Alan and Elena, their faces smeared with delight, showered him with praise. The other adventurers, experiencing such flavors amid the wilderness for the first time, were equally impressed. The next morning, however, Takumi found himself facing a line of hungry adventurers, eager for a taste of his culinary magic. Their expectant gazes were laced with a hint of resentment, unsettling him and the twins. He comforted his children, shielding them from the negative energy. Their journey continued, the atmosphere growing increasingly strange. While they encountered an abnormally high number of monsters the previous day, their path was now eerily quiet. The adventurers Takumi had rescued earlier expressing their gratitude, formally introducing themselves. They recounted their terrifying encounter, unable to sleep after the near-death experience. It was as if those wolves appeared out of thin air. One shivered. Loane agreed, finding the appearance of such sudden powerful creatures deeply unsettling. The hostile gazes from some adventurers persisted, but a more pressing matter arose. They discovered a colossal creature concealed high above, camouflaged among the trees. It was a testament to its stealth that they had only just detected it, thanks to Alzin and Elena's sharp senses. The other adventurers hadn't noticed a thing. This new threat was far more dangerous, strategically blocking their path. Its immense strength was evident, swatting aside anyone who dared to approach. Takumi, sensing the danger, forbade the twins from engaging. This was unlike any monster they had encountered before. It possesses an otherworldly resilience, rendering their attacks useless. The adventurers resorted to magic, slowing down the behemoth. "This must be the cause of the recent disturbances," one of them exclaimed. "It's driving out all the other monsters from their territories." "That explains the unusually ferocious monsters we encountered yesterday," Loane muttered, piecing together the events. They were dealing with an apex predator of the territory. Isaac tended to the injured adventurer, while the mages and archers prepared for a ranged attack. The rest of the group would engage the creature in close combat. However, their attacks proved ineffective against its impenetrable hide. It's resistant to both magical and physical attacks. Takumi realized, conventional methods won't work. The creature, sensing an easy target, charged towards the injured adventurer. Takumi reacted immediately, cutting down a nearby tree to block its path. The others seized the opportunity, continuing their attack. Suddenly, the creature changed direction, writhing violently. Alan and Elena, clinging to its back, squeezed with all their might. Their terrible strength forced the creature to divert its attention, momentarily losing focus. Seizing the opportunity, Takumi rushed forward, stabbing a short dagger into its eye, the only weak spot he could perceive. Loane cheered, but the cheer was cut short. That ominous presence returned, its cold gaze locked onto their group. Due to the murderous gaze once again, the three of them, Takumi, Alan, and Elena, were caught off guard. The two children were hit by the creature's giant tail, sending them flying. Despite their endurance far beyond human comprehension, even they were not immune to pain. Takumi, his heart pounding with anger, turned to Rudolph. "I need time," he shouted. "Distract it. I need to prepare something." He intended to unleash a high-level wind spell, a technique he had never tried before, but was confident in his ability to execute. Trusting Takumi's judgment, the adventurers charged in, buying him precious time. He poured all his anger and protectiveness into the spell, his reserves of energy rapidly depleting. However, the amount of magical energy he channeled was minuscule compared to his immense capacity. A pure compressed ball of wind appeared above his outstretched hand. "Move!" he roared, signaling the others to clear the area. He unleashed the spell, aiming straight at the giant creature. Even its incredible magic resistance was no match for the sheer force of the attack. The wind blade, as Takumi had mentally called it, tore through the monster, slicing it into pieces. The remaining energy tore through the surrounding trees, leaving a path of destruction in its path. The adventurers gasped, staring in disbelief. Takumi had just unleashed a level of power they had never seen before. They were still alive, thanks to him. Its blood and flesh are extremely valuable, Rudolph said, moving towards Takumi. You should be the one to collect them. You deserve it. Alan and Elena, relieved that their father was unharmed, rushed to hug him. He held the children tightly, his heart still pounding from the near-fatal blow. A normal person would not have been able to escape that blow unscathed. Bones would have been broken, lives would have been lost. Takumi vowed never to expose his children to such danger again. The oppressive presence they felt suddenly accelerated, its focus clear as day. Takumi's eyes widened, instantly freeing himself from the source of their torment, Sages. Without hesitation, he unleashed a blast of wind magic, restraining the knight who was starting before anyone could react. What are you doing? Loane roared, confused by Takumi's sudden aggression towards one of them. What did I do? Sages stood still, his face pale with fear. You've been watching us, Takumi accused, his voice dangerously low. With those eyes, Rudolph nodded in agreement. He's right. Sages has been staring at you since we set out. Even in battle, his gaze never wavered. It was truly distracting. The veteran adventurer's voice hardened. Such blatant hostility in a life-or-death situation is unacceptable. Sages refused to take responsibility, however, instead blaming Takumi. It's your fault. Since you arrived, the captain hasn't had eyes for anyone else, Isaac said. It's no secret that Sages harbors feelings for Loane, Sages explained, his voice filled with irritation. Seeing him pay so much attention to someone else threw him off balance. The air was thick with unease. Love? Loane choked, his face a mask of horror. You mean, that kind of love? Indeed, Isaac confirmed. To tell you the truth, I don't love Takumi, Loane shouted, his face turning an alarming shade of crimson. With the misunderstanding cleared up, Takumi's anger subsided, replaced by a weary resignation. At least they were safe. As the day drew to a close, the knights, deeply apologetic for Sage's behavior, offered their sincere apologies. They feared the incident might damage their comradeship, but Takumi and his sons bore no ill will. They had merely asked Sages not to stare at them with murderous intent. With the tension gone, the mood lightened considerably. The adventurers, now accustomed to Takumi's cooking skills, eagerly requested another delicious meal. Their usual rations paled in comparison. Despite forgiving Sages, Takumi kept his distance, uncomfortable with the unwanted attention. However, Alan and Elena had no such qualms. They forgave and forgot about the incident, their cheerful demeanor returning. Relieved, Takumi agreed to cook for the group, assisted by some enthusiastic volunteers. That night, everyone enjoyed a hearty, rich meal. Later, while the others were busy, Takumi and his children quietly gathered, a strange feeling filling them. They had acquired new skills. Takumi suspected Sill's involvement. He would have to ask about it later. Loane stepped forward, offering another apology for Sage's behavior and his lack of control over his subordinates. The children, no longer afraid, readily accepted his apology, even allowing him to stroke their hair gracefully. This expedition's greatest credit undoubtedly goes to the three of them. Without their help, the entire group might have been left without a way home. They were supposed to stay for a few more days, but given the large number of injuries, they needed to return for treatment. Therefore, the expedition ended the very next day. He also reminded Takumi to claim his reward from the guild and to level up as well. The next day when they returned, the receptionist, Luna, was thrilled, as if she had struck gold. She was excited because she knew this trip would bring back many valuable items, so she was eager to buy them all. The three of them were then taken inside to meet the guildmaster, who was already informed about everything concerning them. The main character's current rank was too low compared to his actual abilities, so the guildmaster decided to promote Takumi to rank A. At first glance, the three of them didn't seem very strong, but after hearing the recommendations from the other two, the guildmaster trusted them. Luna was very excited because they had risen so many ranks in such a short time. Overall, their strength was now assured, so there would be no objections to the rank increase. With their achievements, Takumi could easily become a rank S adventurer. But if he were promoted that high, it might cause unrest within the guild. Takumi didn't mind how high he was promoted. He was more concerned about Alan and Elena. They possessed exceptional strength, but if their ranks were raised too high, it might attract unwanted attention. Therefore, the guildmaster suggested promoting the two of them to rank D. allowing their team to take on joint missions since the difference between their ranks was manageable. Luna was tasked with completing the paperwork. The three of them then went to the reception desk to have their cards checked by her. After putting their cards into the verification orb, it surprisingly revealed that they had previously cleared a dungeon, something they could not hide. Takumi had to admit this. Luna was astonished that they had managed to clear the entire dungeon in just one trip, especially since it took them only a few days, while others took months or even years. This was indeed a new record, but Takumi wanted to keep this information confidential to avoid drawing too much attention to Elena and Alan. She believed that no one would dare to challenge those who had defeated that terrifying serpent, so there was no need to worry. The rank promotion was completed along with a bit of compensation for the expedition. As they were about to leave, Luna called them back. They couldn't just leave so quickly. There were still the materials they had gathered that needed to be dealt with. Although Takumi wasn't keen on selling everything, he felt obligated to comply due to Luna's insistence, so he decided to sell the materials. The three of them were taken to the storage room where they were shown 2 pieces of meat from the rare serpent, which amazed everyone. Takumi said he wanted to keep some of the materials from the beast for their own use, so he asked the others to set aside the meat and assist him. In general, as long as they had enough materials for 3 sets of armor and some food, they would sell the rest. Additionally, the herbs and various types of meat from the Gaia forest were also sold, making Luna's eyes light up with excitement. The 2 children didn't seem too fond of Luna, as they thought she had taken all their food. After the expedition, Takumi felt quite tired, while Alan and Elena appeared unaffected. They still wanted to go out and play more. In the end, after returning to their lodgings, Takumi fell asleep, while the kids stayed awake, watching their father sleep peacefully. A few days later, the family went out to the fields to play with some of the magical beasts. Alan even showed Jewel how to smile, while his sister expressed a desire to talk with Feet and Bolt. Since they weren't taking any new quests from the guild at the moment, Takumi took the opportunity to teach his children. He brought out various coins for them to distinguish and calculate. 10 small coins could be exchanged for 1 large coin, and 10 large coins could be exchanged for 1 silver coin. Alan and Elena learned quickly, making the calculations easy for them. To give them practical experience, Takumi took them to several shops for practice. The city was as bustling as ever. They visited a fruit stand to test their math skills. Alan chose to buy 5 sherry fruits, which cost 35 coins, and he managed it easily without needing his father's help. Elena chose to buy apples, which were known to be very good. The price for 5 apples was 30 coins, which was relatively easy for her. The vendor praised the 2 children for their impressive skills, which made them very happy. I also noticed that the kids really enjoyed receiving praise. After putting away their purchases, I took them to a bookstore. Inside, there were various types of books they needed, with the most important being books for learning to write. Elena and Alan were excited to start learning to read and write, so they eagerly wanted to begin. The shopkeeper happily introduced them to several simple books designed for practice writing. Seeing this, the 2 children also went to thank the shopkeeper, who was very pleased and praised Takumi as a good teacher. Takumi felt reassured that his approach to raising children seemed to be working. The next day, the 3 children went to the guild to receive a simple quest. Despite being newly promoted, they chose a relatively easy quest instead of a monster hunting quest. This time they were tasked with finding a lost cat within 2 days. According to the information in the request, the cat was named Mina, had shiny black fur, slightly white paws, and wore a collar. When they arrived at the area where the cat was missing, they split up to search more efficiently. They also summoned 3 companions who were familiars to help them search. Each called out the kitten's name, but they only found other cats that did not match the description, which was quite disappointing. Takumi had to encourage the children to continue searching, but still to no avail. After resting for a while, they regrouped and decided to continue searching with a new job. This time they searched together and finally discovered the kitten Mina as depicted in the drawing. Takumi reminded Alan and Elena to approach carefully so as not to scare the kitten. The kitten seemed very hungry and cautious, so it was scared when it saw them there. Seeing this, Alan used the kitten's collar as a toy to lure it out, making the kitten curious and come closer. When they caught the kitten, they checked again to make sure it was really Mina. Knowing that the kitten was hungry, Elena asked her father to get food for it, so Takumi provided some milk. Seeing his children happily interacting with Mina made Takumi feel much happier, and he decided to choose similar easy tasks in the future. They returned the kitten to its owner, who was very relieved and happy after waiting for many days. Seeing this, the children did not want to go home and wanted to continue exploring. Takumi, having no other choice, asked Luna if there were any similar quests. She informed him that there were no more quests. However, Luna suggested another type of quest that might interest the children: exterminating goblins. Goblins had been attacking nearby villages recently, causing problems for the residents. While this quest was too difficult for low-level adventurers, it was considered quite manageable for them, considering that they had just been promoted. Luna suggested this as a way to help the community and gain more merit. Takumi asked the two if they wanted to go fight goblins. They didn't know what they were, but they were excited to fight, so they set off immediately. Thanks to the flying ability of the little magical beasts, they were able to reach the village in a few minutes. To avoid scaring the villagers, Takumi also asked the magical beasts to shrink down to their normal size before entering the village. After preparing, they went to meet the guards to get more details. Since they were dressed normally, the two guards didn't think they were adventurers. He told them he came to help the village exterminate the goblins and wanted to meet the village chief first. Seeing how cautious the villagers were, he learned that the monsters had been causing trouble for a while now. They hadn't suffered any casualties yet, but their livestock had suffered significant losses. The chief initially thought they were part of a larger group and asked where the rest of their party was. Takumi laughed and said they were the only ones, shocking the chief. Usually, adventurers would wear armor or carry weapons, and they didn't have anything, so they wouldn't be able to fight. To gain the chief's trust, Takumi had to show his adventurer's guild card, which reassured the chief. Before they could explain the situation, the mother of the goblins arrived and started attacking the village. Takumi immediately wanted to go deal with them, telling the chief to evacuate. The chief was worried about Alan and Elena, but Takumi lied and said they would be safer staying by his side. The goblins had already broken through the gate and were threatening a woman. Luckily, Takumi arrived in time to take her down before anything worse happened. These goblins were all mature, so their bodies were very large, explaining why low-level adventurers couldn't defeat them. The two children asked to join the fight, and Takumi agreed, telling them to be careful. They were thrilled to be allowed to fight, and the three magical beasts were allowed to participate and show off their abilities. The goblins were no match for them, and they quickly wiped out half of them. Then a larger, more intelligent, and dangerous goblin appeared. Takumi analyzed it as a higher-level goblin. He turned around and saw that Elena and Alan had already taken it down. Peace had returned to the village without needing any help from him. Unexpectedly, Jewel could now speak. It seemed that after defeating the goblins, she had evolved and could now communicate. In her normal form, he was still a child, and Takumi didn't like being called master, so he asked to be called something else. Alan and Elena suggested that Jewel call Takumi Big Brother, so Jewel agreed. Fitch and Bolt also learned to communicate and called Takumi Big Brother and Senior Brother. The mission to exterminate the goblins proved to be very beneficial. The three magical beasts were now able to communicate telepathically, and they gained goodwill by helping the village. Alan and Elena also welcomed their new friends, expressing their joy at being named by Takumi. Takumi patted all of them on the head and praised them for their efforts, making everyone happy. There was a cloud of black smoke nearby, so Bolt went to check and found that the goblins had burned down some of the villagers' houses. Takumi wanted to try using the water magic he had just learned from a book. He focused his mind to create a ball of water, but when he chanted the spell, it failed to reach its target. Embarrassed, he tried several more times, but still failed. He didn't understand why water magic was so difficult to use. Creating a ball of water to put out the fire should have been easy, but with his current level, the house would have burned down before he could do it. Seeing this, Takumi felt frustrated and decided that he needed to review his magic techniques when he returned home. Alan and Elena, noticing their father's distress, patted his head to comfort him, just like Takumi had done to them before. After dealing with the goblins, it was already late afternoon, so they decided to go home. Returning home, although Takumi was tired, he still needed to teach his children how to read and write. Children were resilient and seemed to never get tired. The books Takumi bought were picture books with easy-to-understand illustrations, making the learning process quite simple for them. Alan also wondered what the sea looked like since he had never seen one before. So the next day, they decided to leave the city and head to the coast. Luane and Isaac were curious about the reason, and Takumi explained that he wanted his children to experience more of the world. They chose Bailey, a city in the south near the sea, which was still within their country's territory, so Luane felt relatively safe. Although the risk of war was low at the moment, caution was still advised. Having a powerful figure like Takumi by his side would definitely bring an advantage. If he were on the other side, things could get dangerous. Isaac, who was eager to join them, enjoyed the extraordinary experiences he had every time he was with them. After deciding to leave, they said goodbye to their acquaintances in the city, which made everyone sad. Luna, in particular, was disappointed to learn that they were leaving and worried that she would no longer be able to buy rare ingredients from Takumi. Takumi reassured her that he would be back in a short while, so she should not worry. Luna insisted that he remember to bring back some rare ingredients to sell, which made Takumi feel frustrated. They also stopped at a bakery, asking the baker to prepare a large amount of bread for their trip. Takumi ordered 2 main types of bread, sweet bread and red bean bread, along with a new ingredient he wanted to try. The next stop was a clothing store where they chose 2 beautiful outfits, but the shopkeeper refused to take any payment. She gave the clothes as a farewell gift for Alan and Elena. The last place they needed to visit before leaving was the church. Takumi let his children play while he went to talk to Sil. Sil appeared with a joyful expression since it had been a while since they last caught up. Sil chided Takumi for not visiting more often, and was particularly interested in Takumi's plan to take his children to see the sea in another city. Since Sil's statue was present everywhere, communication in a new city wouldn't be an issue. The trio then went outside to say their goodbyes to the city. Just as they were about to leave, someone suddenly blocked their path. It was the slave trader who had abandoned Alan and Elena in the forest. Now that he saw them living well, he had come to claim them. Seeing the slave trader, the children immediately showed signs of fear, even though they were much stronger than him. The man kept demanding Takumi return his merchandise. Takumi quickly identified the man as the slave trader and stood up to protect his children. Despite the man's aggressive and disrespectful demeanor, Takumi remained calm, asserting that the children were his. The trader didn't believe him because he had a strong memory of abandoning Alan and Elena and recognized them. Takumi stayed composed and noted that his children didn't have any slave marks, so there was no reason to be afraid. He had always been opposed to the idea of turning children into slaves. He tried to stay calm while the trader kept advancing. If it weren't for his children being present, Takumi might have struck the man. However, he wanted to set a good example for Alan and Elena, rather than resorting to violence immediately. Just then, some soldiers arrived upon hearing the commotion. The trader accused Takumi of stealing property, but Takumi was quick-witted. He tricked the man into revealing what items Takumi supposedly stole, exposing the trader as a despicable slave dealer. Takumi demanded proof of his claims, and when the man couldn't provide any, it was clear he was guilty of kidnapping children. The trader was left speechless and then immediately shackled and taken away for questioning by Luane and Isaac, who happened to be nearby. Afterward, Takumi thanked Luane and Isaac. It turned out they had come to bid farewell to Takumi and his children, and happened to witness the incident, so they helped out. They informed the guards about the situation, ensuring that no one would dare to harm them in the future. Elena and Alan looked quite sad, likely worried about leaving their father's protection. Takumi reassured the children, telling them not to worry, and that as long as they wanted to stay by his side, he would always be there to protect them. Hearing this, Alan and Elena ran over to hug him and cried, feeling comforted. Soon, it was time to set off, and Isaac handed Takumi a letter of introduction to make their journey smoother. Isaac had connections with the Lord of Bailey, so he had made arrangements in advance. This letter would ensure that they were received warmly, and they could also ask for help if needed. Takumi thanked Isaac, knowing that having this letter would be very beneficial in case they encountered any problems. After exchanging farewells with Volt and Isaac, the family set off, traveling by land to enjoy their journey. Despite this, the children still seemed unsettled after the recent incident. Takumi decided to take them into Gaia Forest to hunt monsters and help them forget their worries. Once in the forest, Takumi summoned Jewel, Feet, and Bolt to join the hunt. Seeing their friends, Elena and Alan's spirits lifted significantly. Jewel, Feet, and Bolt were all about the same age as the children, so Takumi had them carry him and his kids a short distance, while Bolt flew above to scout for any strong monsters ahead. They swiftly rode the magical beasts and soon encountered a large monster. Bolt attacked first, causing the monster great pain. Jewel and Feet then joined in, and together they quickly defeated it. Just like Alan and Elena, the magical beasts enjoyed the fight, and when they spotted another similar monster, they eagerly engaged in combat. The scene felt very familiar, just like the children's excitement in battles. After the fight, the beast's fur was covered in dust and blood, so Takumi decided they needed to clean up before they could lick each other's faces. Using water magic, he cleaned them up right away. Fortunately, after this outing, Alan and Elena were cheerful again, their previous worries forgotten. The children played around, searching for and capturing small monsters for fun. They decided to camp outside the forest before nightfall. Once everything was set up, Takumi asked the kids what they wanted to eat. They hesitated for a bit before deciding on cake, but since cakes were usually eaten in the morning, Takumi suggested they try something else. He decided to make a meal with rice and eggs for them to experience. Elena and Alan were excited to try it, and the other three beasts were curious as well. Takumi was a bit surprised by their enthusiasm, but agreed to cook for everyone, preparing a dish called oyakudon. The kids expected the rice and egg dish to have a boiled egg on top, so they were a bit confused when it turned out differently. However, they still enjoyed it a lot. To eat more, the three magical beasts also shrank in size because in their basic form, just 2 bites would fill them up. They were surprisingly clever, which made Takumi laugh. Everyone enjoyed the rice dish, so it was likely to become a staple on their menu from now on. That night, the family slept under the starry sky. Takumi hadn't felt this relaxed in a long time. In this world, there were 3 moons, but only 2 were visible this season. It had been over 2 months since he was brought here, and everything seemed to be moving too quickly for him to keep up with. The next morning, they ate quickly and set off again. The next destination was the sea, a place Alan and Elena had never been to before. They were amazed by the vast expanse of water. Takumi warned them that the seawater was salty and advised them not to drink it. If they wanted to taste it, they should only dip their fingers and taste it lightly. The magical beasts, finding their friends' reactions amusing, joined in. Suddenly, someone called out to them, startling Takumi. He initially thought someone had drowned, but it turned out the person was coming from the sea. The girl even knew about Takumi, suggesting a connection to the divine. The girl introduced herself as Melina, a mermaid. She knew about Takumi because she was a servant of the water deity. Takumi understood the situation, but the children were confused, wondering if the mermaid was a sea creature who had come to eat them. Alan and Elena greeted Melina, who surprised them by knowing their names. Melina explained that she was sent by the deity to ask for Takumi's help with a problem the merfolk were facing. Though it was a bit awkward to be asked for help right after meeting, Takumi agreed, understanding it was likely a divine will. However, the merfolk's village was deep underwater, and since they couldn't swim or breathe underwater, this posed a problem. In Japan, whenever Takumi went swimming, he would transform into a submarine, so he was a bit afraid of drowning. But he realized that with his new powers, he might not be afraid of water anymore. For Alan and Elena, it was easier since children learned to swim quickly. Melina had prepared a special ring that allowed them to breathe underwater, solving the problem. After confirming its effectiveness, Takumi agreed to let the children wear it. The ring was made from mermaid scales. When wearing it, a protective sphere is created so that the clothes do not get wet. He also mentioned his concern for the mermaid village, but he was not sure if he could solve their problem. The girl was satisfied with that, and the 3 little beasts had to enter their spheres to go down with them. When the rings were given to the 2 beasts, they automatically adjusted to fit their hands. Then, they dived into the sea to play, and indeed, they did not get wet. Since they were not used to diving deep, they held their breath. Even more surprisingly, Takumi was still able to communicate underwater. Elena and Alan adapted easily. They already knew how to swim and were very relieved. Seeing this, Takumi could not let himself fall behind, so he struggled and bumped into Melina. In this situation, Takumi realized that mermaids were actually very beautiful, and their tails were quite charming. As they continued, they asked if there were any monsters around, and were told that there were. In the area where they were swimming, there were only a few weak monsters that were not a threat. At that moment, a mindless shark rushed at them, and was quickly dealt with by the 2 children. It turned out that wherever there were monsters, Alan and Elena would defeat them. They even brought gifts back to their father, which was very thoughtful. Nearby, they also targeted a large crab, which was quickly neutralized by carefully approaching it with its claws. Melina was shocked to see them smash the crab's head against the rocks. Then, when they returned to shore, they would have seafood to eat. Continuing, they passed through the mermaid's protective barrier and arrived at the village, which was surrounded by a bright light, much to the delight of the 3. As they looked around, they saw that most of the village was made of sea glass, which was considered to be the crystallization of water and contained the power of the sea. The merfolk called this place the Palace of 1,000 Seas. They needed to go around the back before they were allowed to enter this area. This was also the main problem the merfolk wanted help with. A shipwreck nearby was causing significant disruption. Inside this ship was the entrance to the cave that led to their coral farm, but it was now blocked by a thick layer of barnacles, preventing entry. The villagers tried to move it, but failed. In desperation, their princess received a signal from the water god directing her to Takumi. The gods believed he could solve the problem, so Takumi began to think of a solution. If he could store it in his inventory, it would still fit, so he tried. This ability only depends on the user's inventory slots, and the number or size of items does not matter. Witnessing this, Milena was greatly impressed. At that moment, many other merfolk arrived, including men, and they were all delighted to have received help. The corals cultivated by the merfolk have many special uses and can be made into medicine. Coral is considered the lifeline for the people here. Fortunately, the sunken ship had only been there for a few days, so the coral wasn't affected. Milena then took the three to meet the princess inside the castle. Upon entering, they saw many fascinating things. The princess welcomed them warmly, which surprised Takumi. Takumi, delighted to see the mermaid princess who was as beautiful as in the paintings, admired her. Although Alan and Elena knew nothing about merfolk, they also praised her beauty. Since she held a high status, Takumi was a bit reserved. The princess, noticing this, said that they should actually be the ones to be respected. The villagers mentioned that the followers of the water deity had said that Takumi was a benefactor. Milena then revealed that thanks to Takumi, the sunken ship had been dealt with. Takumi was curious about what they meant by followers, and worried that his true identity might be exposed. To be sure, he asked about what the followers of the deity had said. The princess explained that only she and two others knew the words of the water deity, so the three didn't need to worry about their secret being exposed. She was quite intrigued because she had heard many stories about him and recounted various details, which made Takumi uncomfortable. Seeing this, someone intervened to stop the princess, fearing that their esteemed guests might leave. The princess didn't think she had done anything wrong, but an elder proved the point by saying she was like a tomboy, which made her blush deeply. Understanding the issue, she apologized and introduced the chief of the merfolk, Mr. Galdo. This was a bit surprising because Takumi had imagined the princess to be the highest authority in the Thousand Seas Palace. The princess explained that the title of princess was merely an honorary position over generations. If someone had the appropriate abilities, they would be chosen by the deities. In reality, this role was a bit troublesome, and she didn't particularly want to hold it. Remembering that they hadn't given a reward yet, she asked if the three needed anything. Takumi, of course, was hesitant to accept since he simply stored the ship in his inventory. Despite this, the merfolk were insistent on providing some form of recompense. Having no other choice, Takumi agreed to the mermaid's request to teach him how to use water magic effectively. This was something that anyone here could do, so it was too simple to be considered a real reward. Mr. Galdo took on the responsibility of teaching the three of them advanced magic, while the princess continued to insist that Takumi accept a gift, which made him uncomfortable. Seeing this, Milena whispered to the princess to give Takumi the items they no longer used. Although it was a bit impolite, the mermaid's items were quite valuable, so it was acceptable. They then took Takumi to a storage area for discarded items. The princess said that the items here would definitely be useful, so he could choose whatever he wanted. Takumi examined a few items to assess their value, and found that they were indeed usable. He was looking for materials to make protective medicine for the two children, so these items were very useful. Elena and Alan found some large, colorful crystals, which were considered trash by the merfolk, but were very valuable in the human world. The area they were in was basically their underwater garbage dump, which shocked Takumi that such valuable items were considered trash. Elena and Alan thought the trash was beautiful, leaving Takumi speechless. The merfolk considered these crystals to be edible seashell stones, which were valuable on land, but were considered trash by the princess. The water god's followers informed them that while these items might be worthless to the merfolk, they were very attractive to humans. Indeed, they were attractive because the two children liked them so much. Takumi ended up taking what he could use because leaving them there would be no use. Back at the Thousand Seas Palace, the three were invited to enjoy a fresh seafood feast. As honored guests, the palace staff held a grand feast in their honor. Enjoying the delicious food and watching the mermaids dance was a delightful experience, making Takumi feel like he was in a fairy tale. He imagined that when the festival ended, the mermaids would take away their lifespans, turning him into an old man while Alan and Elena would grow up. They had also prepared a room for them, which resembled an aquarium, although the children had no idea what it was. During this time, Takumi taught the children about various types of fish and seafood. However, when asked what a particular creature was, he had no idea, as he had never seen anything like it before. The next morning, Mr. Galdo took them to a small, uninhabited island to learn magic. Since Alan and Elena were beginners, they were given a thorough explanation from the start. There are two main types of magic: control and creation. On land, magic such as earth and wind can easily be controlled because these elements are readily available in the environment, which is called control magic. However, for fire and water magic, if the elements aren't present, one must create them first, which is referred to as creation magic. In an environment without water, if you want to use water magic, you must first create the water. Upon hearing this, Elena and Alan were completely baffled as they didn't understand anything. In the area they were standing, there was already wind and water, making it easier to perform and less taxing. Takumi, who was already familiar with the basics, tried creating a huge column of water. The tribe then focused on teaching the children step by step for better understanding. First, they needed to learn about the flow of magical power within themselves. Mr. Galdo demonstrated by channeling magical energy outward, which was fascinating for the children because it felt so warm. Magical power is the source of magic. By feeling and releasing it, one can perform magic. To make it easier to understand, Takumi asked his children to try creating the warm sensation they had felt earlier. He, being from another world, understood immediately. Although Takumi had used magic for a long time, this was the first time he truly felt the magical power within himself. Elena and Alan, being prodigies, were also quick to grasp the concept. The next step was to control water by taking some water and channeling magical energy around it. With practice, they could control and shape it. In a single attempt, they managed to create a sphere of water as instructed. The princess praised them for their skill, noting that mastering the basics was already difficult. To create a perfectly round and beautiful sphere, merfolk children would usually take at least half a day. After successfully making the water sphere, they learned how to apply it in combat. Takumi was asked to shoot at a distant rock, which he managed successfully due to his grasp of the basics. Seeing their father's impressive skills, the children eagerly followed suit. Normally, they were already incredibly strong, and now with the ability to use magic, they were even more formidable. They could throw objects with enough force to destroy mountains, which amazed Mr. Galdo. Thus, the three were allowed to flatten the entire island for practice. By the afternoon, before they could return to the Thousand Seas Palace, the two children suddenly sensed something incredibly powerful approaching. Normally, they wouldn't be afraid, but this time they clung tightly to their father. Takumi decided to investigate, and a massive sea creature appeared. At the same time, the deity summoned the water deity's followers to confront them for daring to exploit their own. Maya was the one who had relayed information to the merfolk about Takumi and the children, asking for their help. This was due to her coincidentally checking on Alan and Elena and helping the merfolk a little. If word got out about this action, it could lead to problems, but fortunately, only the three of them knew, so they were temporarily forgiven. Maya was reprimanded, being told that she must not use Takumi again, as their deity owed him a considerable debt. Meanwhile, in another realm, the deity was furious, blaming the water deity Wendell for neglecting their duties, which led to Takumi facing many issues. Despite Maya knowing had her difficulties, the current situation was unacceptable. Everything was connected to Takumi, who was prepared, supported, and relied upon by the water deity. However, the situation was a result of the deity's own mistake in bringing Takumi here. There was no way to rectify the current problems, so it was best to leave it alone. With two deities backing him, Takumi would have nothing to fear. As soon as the deity finished speaking, a subordinate reported that the three were in danger, and they were unable to intervene. The creature afraid of the children was a leviathan, over 800 years old, and a follower of the water deity. It was also known as the king of the sea and considered a current of water itself. The leviathan had no intention of attacking. It only came to greet them after sensing the presence of Alan and Elena. Since Takumi was also a follower of the wind deity, they were of similar status. The leviathan referred to the children as the offspring of the water deity and commented on their strength. Takumi had suspected this connection. Upon further inquiry, he learned that the leviathan had been tasked with protecting the children since their birth, but had failed due to its inability to leave the sea. If it had tried to come ashore, it would have likely destroyed several cities. Meeting them here was considered fate, so the leviathan promised to lend its strength whenever they were in trouble. However, in return, Takumi had to name it, which would serve as a temporary pact. This was more of a friendly agreement rather than a master-servant contract. In this way, Takumi was able to summon his new friend, although whether or not the friend agreed would depend on him. Hearing this, Takumi named his new friend Kaiser, which made him very happy. Besides, Kaiser noticed that the children seemed to truly consider him as their father. Since he had failed to protect them before, Kaiser asked Alan and Elena to go with him this time. This request surprised Takumi, leaving him quite shocked. Naturally, the children refused to leave, crying and clinging to him. This was just a test of their attachment, as Kaiser had no intention of separating them. The positive relationship reassured the new friend. From the beginning, Kaiser had no intention of taking the children away. It was just a test. Takumi admitted that he was much weaker than Kaiser, but he promised that he would never abandon the children no matter what happened. Although Kaiser couldn't directly help take care of them, he gave them advice and guidance on how to live in this world. Having lived for over 800 years, Kaiser had a wealth of experience to share through mental communication. In addition, he gave Takumi a protective scale that allowed them to always know each other's location. On the way back, Kaiser gave the three of them a ride, letting the children experience the feeling of riding on the back of the Sea King. Kaiser swam around for a while, letting them enjoy the sparkling ocean view. With the incredible beauty he could create, Kaiser was definitely much stronger than Takumi had imagined. When they arrived at the Thousand Seas Palace, they had to say goodbye. Takumi promised to summon them next time to have fun again. After playing with the water dragon, the three of them returned to the Mermaid Palace and were greeted by the two young women. Alan and Elena proudly showed off their experience riding the swimming dragon, but their father, worried about any potential issues, insisted it was just riding a few fish. Additionally, they had the chance to see some sparkling scenes deep underwater, which is a rare and lucky sight for mermaid folk. Their time there was truly wonderful, but as all good things must come to an end, the three of them decided to return to the surface that day. Although they wanted to play some more, they felt they had received enough gifts and magical lessons, so the main character declined further activities. The little princess suddenly had an idea and asked him to wait while she retrieved a secret box. She told him to use it on their journey, even though she didn't know what was inside. Takumi, assuming it was just food, accepted the box. Thus, the three of them swam back to the surface joyfully. Since they weren't in a hurry, the kids kept stopping to catch any interesting creatures they came across. For some reason, Takumi discovered a maze nearby. It was as if the maze had appeared just for them. Elena and Alan were excited and immediately swam in to explore without much thought. Takumi, on the other hand, had to pause and investigate the maze to see what it had to offer. When they reached the surface, they found a teleportation device. This was quite convenient as it meant they wouldn't have to navigate through the maze to find the rooms. After bringing the kids to the surface, Takumi checked and discovered that this was Maze No. 53 in the world. It consisted of 30 floors, which wasn't too difficult to navigate, with a teleportation gate every 10 floors. The two children immediately demanded to leave, but the protagonist refused to continue until they finished eating, as they had been underwater for quite a while. When they opened the box, it turned out to be a meal, full of seafood. The exploration of the labyrinth began shortly after. Usually, the children could point out the right path, so Takumi decided to follow them. Of course, there were monsters inside, but they were easily defeated. Takumi also used the new water magic he had learned. Alan and Elena were excited, although their water ball moved too slowly, allowing a frog to dodge them. This was not surprising, as this was their first time actually fighting. Seeing that his two children were unhappy, Takumi encouraged them to try again, and they succeeded in defeating the frog. As they continued, they discovered a suspicious wall and decided to investigate. Behind the wall, there were many treasure chests. What surprised them was that when they opened them, they found a large amount of red lobsters, neatly arranged. Elena was about to take some to eat, but their father stopped her, pointing out that they were not cooked yet. Opening more treasure chests revealed more food, including dried fish similar to what you would find in Takumi's world. He thought it would be great if they could be cooked. The remaining chests contained all sorts of fresh seafood. Although Takumi didn't understand why the labyrinth provided them with so much, he was still grateful. They reached the 6th floor, and Takumi decided to stop and rest since it was getting late. Checking the inventory, they found some crabs and dried fish from before, and decided to make a hot pot. Eating this way was really fun, and everyone found it delicious. Alan and Elena, who had been growing up and eating a lot recently, were full. Their father also steamed some shrimp for them to try. They weren't sure how long the seafood had been stored there, but it was definitely high quality. After a hearty meal, Takumi set up a safety barrier and went to sleep. The next morning, the three of them continued to advance through the labyrinth without any difficulty. The monsters they faced were stronger, but Takumi had developed a keen sense of their weaknesses and strengths. He also instructed the children on effective combat strategies, such as attacking poisonous monsters from a distance. Both of them had improved their magical abilities. As expected of a child of the water god, Takumi was shocked to see that both Alan and Elena had reached level 25, with the title, Child of the Water God, added to their status. If outsiders saw this, it might cause problems, which made Takumi worried. In addition, Takumi was currently level 27. Knowing that they might soon surpass him was a bit embarrassing, so he decided to level up harder from now on. Part of it was because whenever they encountered a monster, it would often let the children try to defeat it. After Alan and Elena successfully defeated such a creature, it released a confetti cannon. Curious, the two children asked their father to try it, and he did. People in this world were not used to such things, and the loud noise startled Alan and Elena. The sound echoed in the labyrinth, making Takumi quite deaf as well. As they continued to find more confetti cannons every time they defeated a monster. When they reached the 10th floor of the labyrinth, Takumi suspected that there might be a boss inside, so he advised the children to be careful and retreat if the opponent was too strong. Contrary to his expectations, the room turned out to have no monsters, only a bridge that the children enjoyed as they ran across. Unfortunately, one of them almost fell into the water while running. The noise attracted some monsters, but they were weak, so the three of them quickly defeated them all. The large number of monsters defeated meant there was a rich amount of loot, including arrows, magic gems, and some fish meat. The exit appeared, so Takumi urged the children to pack up and leave without hesitation. Suddenly, Alan felt something strange in the water and told his father. Takumi checked and found no monsters or traps, so they decided to investigate. They dived down and discovered another chest at the bottom, which contained a mermaid bracelet. Since they already had one, they decided to put it away and think about how to use it later. As expected, there was a teleportation gate every 10 floors. Although there were still about 20 more floors of the labyrinth to explore, Takumi decided to stop. After reaching the surface, they planned to go to Bailey the next day, as originally planned. The next morning, they arrived at the port city of Bailey. The market there was bustling, with a variety of foods for sale. Since they had received Isaac's letter of introduction to the Lord, they planned to visit and greet him after finishing their errands. The delicious aroma spread everywhere, making it irresistible for Takumi. Nearby, there was a stall selling grilled clams, so he decided to try them. However, the locals seemed to lack knowledge about various seasonings, so the presentation was a bit plain. Everything was fresh, caught that morning. When Takumi asked the owner if they had any spices, he learned that they only had salt. To enhance the flavor, Takumi suggested buying 3 clams and preparing them himself. First, he added some cheese to the grill, and then he drizzled a bit of sauce on top, which made it look even more appetizing. After he finished, the kids praised the dish, making the owner drool with envy. The owner was intrigued by Takumi's cooking method. He understood the use of butter, but didn't know what the sauce was. Takumi explained that it was a sauce made from a plant called koikuchi, which he offered for them to taste. It turned out to be 10 times better than the plain clams. Usually people only tasted the sweetness, so eating more could become boring. But with this preparation, it was irresistible. Passers-by were drawn in and asked for a taste as well. Alan and Elena refused to share any, so their father ended up giving the owner some of the sauce to offer people. He also sold the owner some butter for future use, and soon, all the clams for the day were sold out. The owner mentioned that it was the fastest he had ever sold out since opening his stall. When asked if he could sell similar clams in the future, Takumi agreed but insisted that the owner would need to source the ingredients himself. Excited by this, the owner packed up his stall to go find the necessary items. The next place they visited was a blacksmith shop. A few days ago, Takumi received protective scales as a gift, but they were too large and he wasn't sure what to do with them. He planned to bring them to the blacksmith to have them crafted into more manageable items. The blacksmith examined the scales and was shocked by the powerful magical aura they emitted. Takumi had to lie and say that he received them as a gift, but the blacksmith didn't believe him. It was hard to imagine anyone giving away such a valuable treasure. The crafting process was also challenging due to the scales' hardness. Although the blacksmith himself couldn't work with them, there was a young man named Rudy at the shop who was skilled in this area. Upon learning that these were scales from a water dragon, Rudy was amazed and couldn't believe he would have the chance to handle such a valuable item. Takumi suggested creating 3 pendants from the scales, which would be more practical and aesthetically pleasing. Rudy quickly sketched a design, which Takumi was satisfied with. Since the scales were precious, The accompanying materials had to be equally valuable. Gold and silver were considered too mundane, so Rudy wanted to know if Takumi had anything else. The metal they used, mithril, was already available at the shop. For the additional materials like leather and straps, they needed to be extremely rare. Surprisingly, Takumi had all the necessary items. He produced mithril spider silk, one of the gifts from the deity. Rudy and the others were astonished by the sheer quantity, as this material was highly rare. Since they had enough straps, they would be able to make 3 pendants. Rudy also wanted to create different designs for them, which Takumi agreed to. When asked if they could bring materials to make armor, the blacksmith said it was possible. He initially thought the items were ordinary, but was stunned when Takumi brought out a piece of extremely rare material. To explain this, Takumi had to prove he was a rank adventurer. Like others, the blacksmith thought they didn't look particularly strong. Although this seemed like a disadvantage, it was actually beneficial because it helped the 3 of them avoid attracting unwanted attention to their valuable materials. Takumi intended to use the materials to make a gauntlet and armor. The gauntlet was intended for the little bird to perch on, as it would be too painful if its talons scratched him otherwise. Alan, who rarely made requests, also asked his father to make something for Bolt. Elena didn't care much, so they only ordered 2 pieces. After leaving the blacksmith, the 3 of them immediately headed to the church to talk with Sil. When Sil came out, he was pleased to see Takumi in good health. Takumi inquired about the children and the water god. Sil was open about it, but he preferred that as few people as possible knew about the children's parentage. At that moment, Takumi was most concerned about the whereabouts and activities of the biological father of the 2 children. This question made Sil ponder, as if he was reluctant to reveal the answer. Tap 9. Seeing this, the protagonist suspects that the water god is male and the father of the 2 children. There is a statue of the water god nearby, but it doesn't say anything, so it's very likely that this guy is the one who abandoned the 2 children. It's actually good to think this way because if he comes to take Alan and Elena away, he will definitely be sad. Changing the subject, his friend congratulates the protagonist for becoming his follower. Everything is going according to his plan. He explains that a follower only becomes an official follower when they are assigned a specific role or complete a certain task. The protagonist's symbol is nurturing and education because he is currently raising the children of the water god. The most disappointing thing is that he is a follower of the wind god but has no role related to the wind. In addition to receiving the blessing from the god before, Takumi also received the blessing from the goddess of creation Marianola. So in a way, Takumi is also considered a person of that goddess. Sil is very unhappy about this because she is the one who discovered talents like Takumi, but the other gods want to take him for themselves. When asked what he will do from now on, his friend said that the 3 of them just need to live as they wish. The gods will take care of any incident, so there is no need to worry. Raising Elena and Alan is enough to complete the task from them, so they will be given to them later. There are also many other rewards because Takumi has raised the level of cuisine in Eteldia. Currently, the bread there is the most popular and famous bread. Not to mention that after going there, they only taught the vendors new recipes, so it will definitely become even more attractive in the near future. This has stimulated the cuisine to develop much more strongly than decades ago, so receiving many rewards is also very worthy. Sil said that in the past few hundred years, Eteldia had never developed in terms of cuisine. Thanks to father and son, a new wind has blown into this place. So the fire god was very happy and thanked the father and son for the food he managed. The most valuable thing the protagonist could get was a contract, which also helped Takumi learn fire magic skills. Hearing this, he was very happy because in fact, when fighting some monsters, using only wind and water was not enough, and not very effective. The truth was a bit embarrassing to say, so he just kept quiet. After that, the 3 of them went to find an inn, making the wind god breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't dare to answer the protagonist's previous question. The reason was because the water god didn't even know he had a child. Not to mention, their mother was also in Eteldia, but was dating someone else. Saying it would probably shock Takumi too much, so he had to keep it a secret. At this moment, the fire god's friend came to greet him. He came here to ask if the wind god had given Takumi that item. He also urged his friend, the fire god, to quickly bestow magic on the protagonist, as he was happy to learn that there was a new skill related to fire. The young man also laughed and said that he had prepared a special beast for them, so that they could rest assured. Above, the 3 of them were still playing around the beach, and the little spirit beasts were also called out to play together for fun. Only Bolt did not play like the others, but Alan and Elena did not spare him. immediately splashing water on his face. Seeing this, their father also threatened them and used water magic to create a slide for the two mischievous children. Because the mermaid's arm effect was permanent, he did not have to worry about them getting wet. As they continued, the children kept asking the main character to create big waves. Just then, the fire spirit beast arrived. It was much larger than the other spirit beasts, making Takumi a little scared. Moreover, its face looked dangerous. Luckily, it was the main character's contracted beast. The two children saw this large creature and were delighted, wanting to ride it. When asked if it was sent by the fire god, it growled. This was because they hadn't been able to communicate telepathically yet. So the other spirit beasts also reminded their master. He heard this and named the lion Vector, successfully helping it communicate telepathically. Although it looked big, it was actually quite cute and very strong. Because of its size, it would be quite expensive to feed, so Takumi also asked Vector to shrink down. It obeyed, but could only shrink to the size of the other spirit beasts. Alan and Elena immediately ran over to get acquainted with their new friend. After a while, they went back to playing with the other spirit beasts. Suddenly, the goofy lion ran away. Later, Vector returned, but with a person. Takumi was shocked, thinking the woman had been bitten and dragged away. In fact, the little girl was just sleeping, unharmed. The main character checked her status and learned that her name was Vivienne, level 54 but 147 years old. He should call her great-grandmother, right? Her race was vampire. No wonder she lived so long. Luckily, in this place, the demon race and some other races didn't confront humans, so Takumi wanted to help. When he asked Vector where he brought her from, he learned it was from over there. The first lesson for him was to not bring people back like that again. It could easily cause misunderstandings. Alan and Elena also poked fun at the girl, who said she was hungry. Just in time, the whole family was also hungry, so the main character took out the prepared food to eat. Hearing about food, Vivian immediately jumped up. It was understandable, she was starving. Seeing the children eating so deliciously, she also started to drool. Feeling sorry for her, Takumi also brought her some food to try. This was the first time she had eaten this special kind of rice. In her hunger, she gobbled it down, afraid someone would take it away. Seeing that, Elena and Alan had to eat quickly, or they'd be left with nothing. After a while, seeing Vivian was doing better, the young man asked why she fainted. Vivian first thanked the three of them for their hospitality, and asked what kind of rice it was so delicious. He explained that it was just ordinary rice balls, only using barley instead of rice. For Vivian, barley was pig food, but it tasted so good. Takumi said that people in his village ate it normally. Because of her open personality, she also caught the attention of Alan and Elena, who were curious about their relationship. The fact that Takumi was so young and had two children like this was truly intriguing. Vivian said she was a spy on her way to the city of Albert when she ran out of food and collapsed. Luckily, they saved her. Takumi was speechless. He didn't understand how a spy could be so foolish. Running out of food and not buying more, just continuing on, it was truly baffling. After investigating, she discovered the man was keeping a commoner girl in his mansion. She had accomplished her purpose and needed to return to report. Before leaving, Vivi gave Takumi 2 types of aphrodisiacs as a thank you gift, saying they were sure to make anyone who took them fall head over heels. Takumi, of course, knew exactly what they were, and felt rather embarrassed with his 2 children present. They even asked if they could try it, which made things even more awkward. He was about to return the gift, but Vivi had already run off. He was certainly an interesting woman, if a little naive. Earlier, his children had overheard her talking about families, and were curious about what that meant. It was understandable, since they grew up without experiencing love. They didn't know what family was. He sat down and explained that everyone in this world was born from a mother and a father. Alan and Elena were happy to learn something new and continued to run around and play. Takumi was worried. What if one day they asked about their mother? He didn't know how he would answer. Right now, they were too young to understand, so he would just shower them with all the love he could. The next day, they went to the Adventurers Guild to take on a quest to find materials, but they already had the things they needed, so they submitted it right away. At first, the receptionist didn't think they were adventurers. Takumi said that they came from another town and showed her their guild cards. After putting them in the appraisal ball, she was shocked. Looking like this and becoming a rank adventurers, the receptionist, overwhelmed, blurted out that Takumi had discovered a new dungeon. The dungeon was listed as an underwater labyrinth, something completely unknown in this area. People began to pay attention to the 3 of them. Alan and Elena were frightened, so Takumi quickly tried to explain and get them out of there. Fortunately, the guildmaster appeared and scolded the receptionist for revealing sensitive information. The receptionist apologized, explaining that he was just excited because it was the first time he had seen someone discover a dungeon. The news was reported to the local lord, who asked Takumi to lead him there. Since the dungeon was deep underwater and had a 50-meter-long tunnel leading to the entrance, it had not been discovered until now. When asked how he planned to enter, Takumi hesitated, mentioning his ability to hold his breath for a long time. The receptionist thought he was a rank adventurer, so she believed him, not knowing that it was actually because of his mermaid bracelet. The children were hungry, so Takumi excused himself and left. The next day, they had to meet Lord Bailey, along with the guild members. There, he introduced himself as Cedric, Isaac's brother. Isaac didn't mention his brother, probably wanting to surprise them. Alan and Elena were delighted to see someone who looked so much like Isaac, since they often kicked his butt. Cedric misunderstood, thinking that his brother liked being kicked by children. Takumi didn't dare explain that the one who was kicked was actually Loane. The three of them then sat down with Cedric and the guild staff to discuss the discovery of the underwater labyrinth the previous day. The Lord was delighted that such a unique feature had been found within his domain. He expressed his gratitude to Takumi once again, acknowledging his crucial role in the discovery. Cedric explained that labyrinths were highly valuable resources, attracting adventurers from far and wide. Regions with labyrinths often experienced rapid development and prosperity. Takumi, initially concerned about the potential downsides, realized that his discovery had brought positive change to the area. The guild members showed them records of previously discovered labyrinths, and upon viewing them, Takumi's map automatically updated with new locations. He couldn't shake the feeling that Sylph might be responsible for this update. The constant sense of being watched was unsettling. When Takumi inquired about exploring the new labyrinth, Cedric revealed that they had only managed to clear the first floor. Its underwater location made access challenging. Those chosen to explore the labyrinth needed excellent swimming skills and the ability to hold their breath for extended periods. Specialized equipment was provided to create breathable air, though not as advanced as mermaid bracelets. It allowed for underwater breathing for a limited time. The Lord mentioned the reward for discovering the labyrinth. While expected, Takumi politely declined, wanting to avoid unnecessary attention. Cedric, understanding the gravity of the situation, assured him that he would report the discovery to the king, who would then bestow the appropriate reward and recognition. Fortunately, Cedric had dealt with similar situations before and promised to assist Takumi and his family in maintaining their anonymity. However, he insisted that they accept the reward, as it was rightfully theirs. As the guild members prepared to leave, Cedric reprimanded them for the commotion they caused the previous day. The young man apologized to the naive employee for revealing the contents of Takumi's card. Takumi was surprised that the incident had reached the Lord's ears. Cedric, however, assured them that no further action would be taken. Cedric allowed them to leave, warning them that any future transgressions would have serious consequences. He knew about the incident because his men were always watching Takumi and his family. Isaac had scolded him for being careless, so he was being extra cautious. The two younger children, seeing the others bowing in apology, followed suit. Takumi should have visited Cedric sooner, but their exploration had kept them busy, causing Cedric some concern. He was relieved to learn they were simply enjoying the sea. Lunchtime arrived, and the family was invited to dine with Cedric. Initially hesitant, Takumi was persuaded by Cedric's insistence. This was their first time experiencing such a luxurious setting, leaving them awestruck. Cedric's wife and children joined them, offering warm greetings. Alan and Erlyn shyly greeted the two children of similar age. Besides them, Cedric's wife and a younger princess, too young to speak, were also present. This was the first time Alan and Elena had interacted with peers, prompting Takumi to step in and facilitate the conversation. The meal was exquisite, despite the simple seasoning, highlighting the quality of the ingredients. Afterward, Cedric inquired about the new pastries Takumi had popularized in Shireen. Isaac had mentioned them in his letter, and since word had spread to reach the city, Cedric was curious. He offered to compensate Takumi for sharing the recipe, but he politely declined. Takumi explained that his children adored cake, and its popularity here would save him the trouble of baking. Hearing about cake, the other children chimed in, requesting a taste. With limited supplies, Alan and Elena suggested trying jelly instead. Unfamiliar with this treat, Cedric's family eagerly accepted. Everyone praised its delicious and refreshing taste. The unusual ingredients sparked curiosity. Unable to guess the source, Cedric inquired, prompting a quick response from Alan and Erlen. It was made from slime. The revelation left Cedric and his family speechless. No one would have guessed that a monster like slime could be used to make such a delicious treat. Takumi explained how he had accumulated a surplus of slime in Shireen, unsure what to do with it. Once he realized its harmless nature, he conceived the idea of making jelly for his children. After cleaning the slime, he boiled it with fruit juice, creating a mixture. He then used magic to instantly cool the mixture, solidifying it into jelly. This revelation left Cedric's family astonished. It seemed Takumi was the only one who had ever thought of cooking with slime. Determined to share this culinary discovery, Cedric requested the recipe, eager to spread the joy of this delicious and affordable treat throughout the city. The biggest challenge lay in sourcing the ingredients. Slime, often discarded in the dungeon, was rarely sold. To meet the demand, Cedric proposed establishing a slime farm and a jelly shop. He insisted on hosting them until they grew tired of the city. Takumi reluctantly agreed, unable to refuse the generous offer. He hoped Theodore and Lattice would play with his children. Initially hesitant, they readily accepted the invitation. That night, they were given a spacious room, a testament to Cedric's wealth. The next morning, they learned Cedric had received a letter from Isaac, who had invented a device for instant messaging. It functioned like a teleportation device, but lacked the power to transport people like the dungeon's teleportation system. Isaac, envious of Cedric's invitation to try the jelly, was frustrated by Cedric's refusal to share the recipe. Takumi couldn't understand their dynamic. Isaac's competitive nature and quick temper remained unchanged. Joining the Knights had taught Isaac to mask his emotions better, but he hadn't revealed his true self. Takumi chuckled, picturing the brothers from their childhood. Cedric must have really loved his little brother, teasing him like this when they grew up. Cedric often teased Walt, but when talking to his older brother, the tables were turned. Alan and Elena, meanwhile, were oblivious, wreaking havoc in the room and nearly giving their father a heart attack. The scene shifted to the city of Saren. Isaac was still playfully sparring with his mischievous friend. Lowain wandered over, asking what was so funny. Cedric recounted Takumi's arrival in Bailey, emphasizing their surprisingly fast travel time. They'd even brought a child along. Lowain couldn't fathom how they'd managed it. The letter also revealed Isaac's discovery of an underwater labyrinth. This meant they hadn't taken a direct route, instead meandering through various locations. Yet, they'd still reached Bailey ahead of Isaac's schedule. Lowain was stunned. Finding a labyrinth was a monumental achievement, often taking years of dedicated searching. This trio had stumbled upon it while casually exploring. It was almost unbelievable, but considering their unique abilities, it wasn't entirely surprising. Isaac and Lowain worried about the potential consequences. The discoverer of a labyrinth was usually reported to the nation. Takumi, however, didn't want fame. Isaac was now concerned about how Takumi and his brother would explain the situation to the king and keep their discovery a secret. It was a certainty that Takumi would be summoned. The incidents in Gaia Forest had already been reported, and now with the labyrinth discovery, things were about to get hectic for him. Their biggest fear was Takumi choosing to leave the country, which would mean losing a valuable friend and those mischievous kids. To help, Lowain decided to write a letter explaining the situation, hoping to somehow get Takumi out of the summons. Back with the trio, the Lord had invited them out for the day, and to avoid causing a stir, he and his butler had to conceal their identities. The seaside offered a diverse array of food, and surprisingly, they ended up at the oyster grill run by the man they'd met before. The place was bustling, but the man recognized them and invited them in, skipping the line. Cedric was astonished to learn that Takumi had taught them the grilling technique. After trying the oysters seasoned with a unique sauce, Cedric inquired about the ingredients, particularly the soy sauce. Later, they arrived at the city's largest marketplace, where everything imaginable could be found, much to Alan and Elena's delight. Mean spotted a stall selling red beans and bought some to make sweet bean paste buns for the kids. Takumi also noticed that Cedric had purchased an item bearing a symbol resembling the ship he'd recovered in Mermaid Village.